Welcome to the Women in Industry podcast. My name is Denise Morris. Today I'm interviewing Kirsty Davies-Chinnock, founder of Women with Metal and Women in Industry. How are you doing, Kirsty?
I'm fine. It seems really weird not to have the questions in front of me.
You're going to
and
get
not
grilled.
be asking them.
Well, you've just been doing some phenomenal work. So this is probably a fantastic opportunity really to share more about what you've been doing and also any future exciting plans. So, are you ready?
I am. Go on then.
Lovely. Okay, so this being the new year, and last year you released 32 episodes of Women in Industry podcasts. Just firstly, I was quite intrigued to find out really how and why you started it.
I had some time off over Christmas, which I do every year.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really lucky our industry shuts down. And with one thing and another, I've tended to take a few days before Christmas. And so it was wonderful. It was relaxing. And then I got bored. So I was sort of having a mooch about on my phone. I played Candy Crush for a bit and and I was like, oh, I don't know what I want to do. I don't want to watch a film. I don't want to read. And I started listening to some podcasts and I was really enjoying it. And then I was like, I can't seem to find one that's focusing on women in the industrial, in the manufacturing sector. So I thought, I'll do my own. And I came back to work in January, really fired up to do it. And then, quite frankly, I lost my nerve and just sort of parked it on the back burner. And then I thought, no, I'll do it to coincide with International Women's Day in March. And then I parked it on the back burner. And then I just went, oh, what the hell? Let's just do it. And yeah, just did it eventually.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think in itself it can inspire many people, and most people, especially given that representation is really important. Have you had any favourite guests so far? And can you say?
Well, obviously, all my guests have been fantastic. I'm just so grateful they've taken the time out of their busy day. Their companies have allowed them to do it. I think for me, the first guest, Joanna Brooks, I mean, she really sort of jumped off the cliff with me. It's like, I don't know what I'm doing. Shall we, you don't mind being the first guest, do you? So it was really nice of her to do that. And I've met some fantastic women just doing this. And then it's a bit like going down a rabbit hole. You talk to one person and then you end up talking to another person because they've commented on, perhaps a LinkedIn or social media post about their podcast. So Catherine Evans, who founded Boulder's Brass, which is all about correctly designed and well-fitting PPE for women. She's a geologist and has been an offshore geologist as well. And then through her, I met Amanda Marshall, who's the director and designer of Three Donkeys. And they've designed the first women's 2-in-1 coveralls, which they've now worked with a company called Leo Workwear to roll out in high vis for women who work in environments that need that sort of protection. So you sort of meet one woman and then they lead you to some others and lead you to some others. And that's just been really, really interesting.
Do you think the timing of it has been a great impact on the types of the quality of guests, the subject matters, the interest in what you're doing?
I think one of the things that has helped, particularly for some of the guests, is the time, as you say, sort of 2023. Some people are still hybrid working, depending on their role. Others are back on site. And as you said earlier on, representation matters. And I think there's much more of a growing recognition of that. Mm-hmm. A lot more companies are talking about having equitable workplaces. A lot of them are putting an awful lot of work in to do that. I know of several stainless steel companies, the industry I'm most heavily involved in, who, are really, really putting their money where their mouth is when it comes to that. And I think it's there's been a slow change, or things have been slow to change, but they have in the background, but no one's really been vocal about it or advertised it or shouted about it. And people are starting to do that now. I think, with the fact that the skills shortage and it's can be difficult to recruit people, you need to fish from every pond you can find. And a lot of companies are really pushing out how they are an inclusive environment, or how they want to be an inclusive environment.
I said advocacy is key, but what also are the challenges?
Yeah, there are challenges. There's no easy answer. One of the things I had a lot of conversations about in 2023 with a lot of different women in manufacturing and women in industry is that some people are looking at flexible working as a way to encourage women into manufacturing industrial workplaces. But by flexible working, they mean, following on from COVID, they can work hybrid and work from home.
Yeah.
And I sort of keep banging my head against the wall on this. And one of my previous guests, Nat McCauley, she's with me on this. And in fact, we were at a dinner where we just literally were banging the table about it. That's fine. But what you're ending up doing there is you are looking to recruit women into, great careers in great companies, but predominantly in accountancy, finance, HR, sales, purchasing, and not into operational type roles, because you can't run a machine or run a factory from your living room. You've got to be on the floor. And one of the things that I said, and Nat agreed with, is, I probably spent the first 20 years of my career getting rid of the 70s, 80s, us and them sort of separation between people who had production roles and people who had office-based roles. Getting rid of that us and them, the overalls and a suit and tie degree of separation, which was on, both sides, but getting rid of that. And you've got rid of that, and people are working together as a team. There's no perception that somebody is better because they're not getting their hands dirty. And we've got rid of that. And now it would be very easy with this, let's get more women in the workplace, but give them hybrid flexible working roles, to bring it back in, but throw gender in it as well. And that doesn't even address the fact that is making a massive assumption that if that is because of family responsibilities, we're automatically assigning the family responsibilities to the woman and not the man.
I think during the course of many conversations I've had with female leaders, that seems to be the common theme. But can I ask you, Kirsty, you have several roles, right? So being a woman in the industry that you're in, you also hold a position. So Managing Director of Professional Polishing Services Limited. You're Director of British Stainless Steel Association. You've got several non-executive roles, recently been appointed onto TEG Midlands Women in Leadership Network Committee. So many hats that you wear. And then you also founded, not like you had enough to do already, you also founded the Women with Metal Limited, which was a conference that I participated in. Thank you so much for the invitation. But it's really to represent and to reflect and help and advise women, give them guidance within the industry, within a conference setting where you're able to share ideas, network, people are able to build their support network. And I think for me personally, seeing you do that was a very proud moment for me. But the same token, I just want to find out a few things. So first, how did you come up with the idea? What was the concept? What were you looking to do and achieve?
I can't take credit for well, I can take credit for the concept because I can. But it stemmed from a conversation I had with somebody in the industry. He's a really, really great guy, and he's involved in several businesses, and one of them is recruitment within the metals industry. And he rang me and he just went, look, I'm looking at various things. He said, there's a golf day, there's clay pigeon shooting, there's a five-a-side football tournament going on. There's nothing for the women. And, you know, a lot of companies I'm talking to are going, we want, you know, 50-50, gender split, applications for any roles we advertise. You know, we're really, really serious about improving our workplace to become more equitable. That's what we want to do. He said, there's nothing for the women, Kirst. Can you run an afternoon tea? Which I took greatly in the spirit of which he meant it. And that was on the Wednesday. And by the Friday, I'd booked 5 speakers, including yourself. And on the Monday, I booked Park Regis Hotel in Birmingham. And I was like, oh, there's probably only going to be 30 or 40 people in the room, including the speakers. You know, please sign me up for the lowest number I'm going to be financially viable for, that I have to pay you for. Because obviously I was doing it myself. And I just sort of said to my husband, you don't mind if I gamble sort of 3 or 4 grand of our life savings on running this, and if, you know, it could all go horribly wrong. And it took off. So within a matter of months, we had a sold out conference, over 100 women, nearly 110 women, for a day long conference, variety of speakers, variety of networking opportunities. And that was the 10th of October. And by the 23rd of October, Women with Metal was a limited company. Shortly followed by being VAT registered and everything else. And then we booked 2024's conference and planned the first regional event for 2024 as well.
That's amazing. Amazing. So just to delve in a little bit more. So from the time that you delivered the conference, what's the feedback been?
I've had some fantastic feedback. Which is just great because it validates everything I wanted to do. The buzz around it was just amazing on LinkedIn. The most important feedback has been constructive. I mean, I got an Uber back after the venue home, and I was sitting there typing notes on my phone on the position of the speakers, using handheld microphones. You know, next time we'll have radio mics, just all these little things that I could see I could improve. But, you know, I've never ran anything like this before, you know, pretty much making it up as I go along. So some of the constructive feedback about people who were sitting in the back couldn't necessarily see the speakers because they weren't on a stage. All little things like that were really, really useful. But yeah, the buzz out there has just been fantastic. I think I can't go into too much detail because we'll be making an announcement later on in January. But within 3 days of the conference, I was talking to people in mainland Europe about an international version for 2024, which is just crazy, absolutely crazy.
Well, that segues nicely into some of what we've got in store in 2024. What are the plans?
So January is the first regional event, which is the 23rd of January. It's at Hilton Garden in Birmingham, and we're bringing back one of your co-speakers from the 2023 conference, Steph Sneyd, and we are going to be looking at a goal-setting workshop. We've got the main conference booked for the end of October, 29th of October, which coincides with Advanced Engineering Week at the NEC. And that's going to be held at takes a deep breath, the ICC Birmingham, the International Conference Centre. We're working on the speakers and the content for that to maximise return on investment for all the attendees, both for their personal and professional development, but also for the companies that are paying for them to attend. It's a fine line of giving them the networking opportunities. And I know within the first 2 or 3 hours of last year's conference, people were finding connections, finding people they could do business with, which is just absolutely great.
Yeah.
But it's also about giving personal connections. You know, we're in this industry, and it's not limited to the metals industry. You know, the metals is a huge industry when you look at everything from raw materials and the mills and the stockholders, to processing, to fabrication, to installation, or, you know, it's huge. All the different sectors, from aerospace, engineering, food and drink equipment, nuclear, pharmaceutical, architectural fixings. You know, it is huge, but it means that people are in a room where there will be a supplier of raw material and an end user and everybody in between. And it just means that those connections can be made, and that they might not result in an order straight away, but what they're going to result in is an increased network of your peers within your sector. And then we're going to have probably 2 more regional events over 2024, one northish and one southish. And yet then hopefully something really spectacular that I can't announce yet.
I can't wait. Really looking forward to hearing a bit more. So we've covered a few things in terms of what you're doing to help and promote and advocate for women. But initially now, bread and butter, the role as managing director. So for professional polishing services, what is the plans there?
We've finished off 2023 after an interesting year. Manufacturing last couple of quarters of 2022 and the first couple of quarters of 2023 is, if I'm to put it in a technical term, I would say was all right. We were really lucky this year. We worked hard and won a nice new account, which has come online in the second half of 2023. So that's given us room to grow. We've recruited another person in the commercial team. We're looking to recruit more in the first half of 2024. So we've got some exciting plans with regard to what we call plant improvement. So as much as it's lovely to go out and spend £250,000 on a sexy new machine, there's other stuff in the background. So we've done quite a lot of R&D in 2023 that's coming through to fruition on digitalisation and Factory 4. We've been investing in new handling equipment, and that's ongoing into 2024. So a lot of the sort of things ticking along in the background. And then we've got September, the UK Metals Expo, which is the third expo, and it'll be the third one that we're in at again. And we've taken a slightly bigger stand for 2024. It's going to be a much bigger show. And yeah, that's going to be really exciting.
I don't even know where you have time in the day to fit everything in that you're currently doing and planning to do. But it's phenomenal work. But what I want to actually find out more about now is what's going to be on the horizon for you, Kirsty?
I'm going on holiday in 2024. Yay! It's been a while. Yeah, it has been busy. I've got a great team at PPS, and they are absolutely fantastic. And I took on at the beginning of November, middle of November, a great VA who's doing a lot of the heavy lifting with women with metal. So that's really freed me up just to say, I want to do this next. can you go and make it happen? And she does. So thank you, Alexis. But yeah, I have got a couple of trips away with my husband this year. We're doing a rather nice stay in London. We're going to the Langham, which we looking forward to experiencing the luxury. And we're going to Barcelona for a few days. So that's nice. And then one of my biggest hobbies is going to the theatre. And I think I've already got about 9 theatre trips booked. Particularly looking forward to seeing Hamilton at the Birmingham Hippodrome. Yeah. So I'm really, really lucky to be able to go and do that fairly frequently. I'm a patron of Birmingham Hippodrome as well, which is great because I occasionally get freebies. So thank you, Judith and John. So it's great to be able to support the work that they do with their development trust, which is for young people in Birmingham and the West Midlands, to get them involved in the performing arts, which is just fantastic.
Fantastic. So, with your plans for 2024, you can tell me now, it's just between us girls, which guest would you really love to have and have featured on the podcast? Who would be on your wish list?
Oh gosh. Do you know who I would love to have on the podcast? Even though she doesn't have, even though her primary businesses aren't necessarily manufacturing, I'd love to have Deborah Meaden on, because I just find her fascinating. I really, really do. And it'd be great to talk to her about Hilary Devey as well, who was my sort of smoking buddy at the Women of the Year Awards before she passed away. We always used to meet for a cigarette. So, I mean, there are so many fantastic women out there. It'd be nice to feature a high-profile name like Deborah Meaden, because then hopefully people who haven't listened to us, and we've had thousands of listens, will then go back and listen to what I would call the normal people like us, the normal people who, get up and go to work and do a fantastic job every single day of the week.
So then that's a fantastic segue as we kind of conclude. So for all the podcasts that you've done and I've listened to, you always kind of finish off by asking the guest what's the best advice that you would that you've ever received. So it'd be good to find out, what's yours?
Mine is from a customer, actually. And we had a really, really horrible mechanical breakdown on one of our lines a few years ago. And we're the only people in the UK who've got this machine who can do this work. And we've got 2 competitors in mainland Europe. So there's only 3 machines in the whole of Europe that can do this. And ours broke. And we tried to fix it in-house and it didn't work. So I had to sort of call my engineers in, who have to come from Italy. So, it's not like they're just jumping a car and they're there 3 hours later. We have to have stuff shipped in, special tools shipped over, which is a lot more complicated post-Brexit than it was prior to that. So the whole thing is really, really difficult to manage. And you communicate as openly as you can with customers. This has happened, it is broken. And you always get someone go, what part is broken? And you understand that what they're actually asking is not what part is broken, it's how long is the machine going to be down for? Because I could tell him it was the left phalange and that, they wouldn't know any different. So what they need to know is how long it's going to impact them, not necessarily what the actual problem is. And we were going to be down for, near enough 2 weeks, which is a huge amount of capacity to take out of only 3 machines in Europe. And for us, it's half the month's capacity. It's very painful. And we'd had 1 or 2 people shout at us. And, you know, that it happens, you know. You've got to take the good with the bad. You know, you get the order off them, they pay your bill, and that's lovely. When something goes wrong and they need to go home and kick the cat, you know, you've just got to listen and empathise. And I remember ringing a customer, and I was sort of like, I'm making all these phone calls, and all I'm doing, even if they're absolutely fantastic and understanding, all I'm doing is letting them down and giving them a problem every time I pick up the phone. And this customer said to me, it is what it is. The one thing you need to remember is that it's not life and death, it's just metal. And just that phrase, it's not life and death, it's just metal, is something that I still use when I'm talking to my team here and when I'm talking to, you know, colleagues outside in the industry. It's not in a frivolous way, but in a, yes, it's a problem. The problem will be overcome. We'll solve this challenge and then we can move forward. So, yeah.
Thank you. And just before we fully conclude, where do people go to find more information about podcasts? You know, what the future plans hold? Do you have a newsletter and people can subscribe to them? What's the information, Kirsty?
Yes, so if you go to the womenwithmetal.com website, you can subscribe to our monthly newsletter, which comes out. That also does feature information on the Women in Industry podcast, and womeninindustry.org is our website for the podcast. And you can find us by searching Women in Industry podcast on Spotify, Google, Amazon, Apple, and we're also on YouTube as well.
Excellent. It has been a pleasure to speak to you, Kirsty.
Thank you very much for being the guest host.
You're very welcome. Thanks for inviting me. It's been a pleasure.